Well, joining us now to discuss what's next for the royal family, and we're also going to be bringing in some of your comments on the 5 phone tonight. We've got the American royal commentator, Kinsey Schofield, and British royal commentator, Afua Hagan. Thank you to the pair of you. Lovely to speak to you tonight. Well, I'd say lovely to speak to you. It's an interesting topic, isn't it? Afua, let's come to you first of all. What have you made of some of the things that you perhaps have read, some of the clips you have seen, some of the revelations that we've all been listening and reading about over the last 24 hours or so?
Well, it's clear that a lot of stuff has been saved from the Harry and Meghan documentary for the book. And we thought, after the documentary, which only came out, the second part came out only, 3 weeks ago, what could possibly be left to say? And now we know. And a lot of what is being said and a lot of the extracts that we're reading, first of all, a lot of it is out of context. I still haven't read the whole book. I've read some of it, haven't managed to get my way through the whole thing yet. But a lot of it is out of context, and a lot of it is typical of an autobiography. And I think why some people are finding it so curling and finding it difficult to stomach is that we hold the royal family up to such a higher standard than we hold ourselves or our own families. So we think, okay, they shouldn't do these things. They shouldn't have arguments. They shouldn't lose their virginity. We shouldn't be hearing about all these things, but they are human beings just like us. And actually, typically, what we are hearing is very typical of an autobiography. There is lots in there. There's lots of padding out of things that we already know. So a typical one would be we knew that there was a huge rift between Harry and William. And now we're finding out so much more about why they have got to the point that they have got
Mm.
to now, why things are so bad. And we know that Harry was very affected by the death of his mother, Diana, Princess of Wales. And now we're hearing about how that grief affected him and how it stayed with him for quite a long time, I think, and actually has affected the course of his life. We're finding out about that as well. His time
Well,
in the army,
well, it's
talking about potentially killing 25 members of the Taliban. Not sure if
no, of
that was a good idea
course.
to put that in the
No,
book.
no, indeed. Let's put some of this to Kinsey. And actually, Afua, I have to say, it's pretty amazing you're already going through the book. Your Spanish must be pretty on point. But Kinsey, let's talk about reaction to some of those details, the extracts that we've already seen. Yes, he's spoken about the strain within his family. Also, interestingly, he's really revealed about his own struggles personally. Do you think that could change the narrative in terms of the coverage that Prince Harry has had since he left the royal family?
I mean, obviously, I do think it's incredibly brave when you do that, when you are so open and honest with people about your mental health. And I think that I wish that the book that was the focus and not some of these wild headlines that we're seeing today about frostbite, et cetera. But I do think that specifically here in the States, the reaction has been negative, which I was extremely surprised by because the royal family to America, it's a soap opera. That's why we follow them. It's a roller coaster. But people have been very critical of him. Jimmy Kimmel did an entire skit last night making fun of the fight between William and Harry, the physical fight. And I thought that was the most damaging element that I'd heard so far. I thought, how could I ever defend a physical fight? And so the fact that has become, late night fodder is really concerning. Did Harry know that he was going to become a joke or that some of these elements were going to become a joke? I don't think that was his objective.
Afua, earlier on in the programme, we heard from the long-term royal commentator, Jenny Bond, and she said she felt that lots of people now feel that Harry is far more damaged than they ever thought he was before. With that in mind, I'm thinking about, maybe our own circle of friends. If you had somebody who was talking about some of the things that he has spoken about in this book and in other interviews, are there enough people around him, you think, who are asking if he's okay, are talking to him about some of these issues? Because if Jenny is right, and many other people are right, that he is so damaged, it's a really uncomfortable way for many people to see all these truths coming out, do you think?
And that's actually a really good point. I agree with what Kinsey said as well, that it's really brave to put yourself out there and talk about all these things. But yeah, you're right. If I had a friend who was talking about these things in these ways, and I felt that I didn't know any of this, I would be concerned. And I would be saying, why didn't you talk to me about it? I wish I could be there for you. And perhaps he doesn't have enough of the right people around him to enable him to do that. We know that he speaks with a therapist, and we know obviously he's found huge comfort in his marriage to Meghan Markle, but maybe there aren't enough of those people around him. But also maybe writing this book or working on this book was a cathartic experience for him. It's much more than just being about these headlines. There's much more to it. He talks about grief in depth, he talks about fatherhood and all sorts of different things. So there is much more to it. So I think actually maybe this is part of the process. Writing this book is part of the therapy and part of putting himself out there, part of that being brave and part of being cathartic.
So let's look at some 5-phone messages, because we all know...
I'm interested to know what's come in today.
We know when you go online, the issue, Harry and Meghan, the royal family, it can be so divisive. It does look like there's more sympathy. But yeah, let me tell you what our viewers think. We've got Dave, less sympathetic. Harry is an absolute disgrace. I'm an ex-soldier. A lot of us have been there. There's no need to be bragging about war killing. Malky from Glasgow says Harry has obviously got a chip on his shoulder regarding lineage. Jackie from Essex, though, says King Charles is father to these 2 young men and defender of the faith. In true fatherhood, he should call both of his sons to sit down, thrash out all the issues and clear the air. John from Halifax says, personally, I feel sorry for Harry. The royal family have let him down, in my opinion. Fiona from Manchester also says, I can't understand why Harry, who left the UK to avoid publicity in the press, is now oversharing his whole life, and comments about killing Taliban members as well. Meanwhile, let me end on Iona from Berkshire. They say, I think that Harry and Meghan have the right to move away from the royal family. They have done so, and I hope this makes them happy. I also think that Harry's book is damaging to the royal family, especially to William. So, Kinsey, I'll put this to you. Do you think that things could change moving forward with this book, particularly when it looks at the response from the royal family as well?
Truthfully, I think the response from the royal family, the idea of not responding, is the best because, like I said, in the States, this is playing out like a soap opera, and it's a game of tennis. So if the royal family says something else, then Harry and Meghan come back. The best way to shut this down and the best way to stop this bleed is by being quiet.
It's really interesting to hear from both of you. Thank you very much. Kinsey, Afua, appreciate your time, appreciate your insight as well. And thank you to everybody who sent in. So I could hear that buzzing away. It's been going crazy today.
Usually divisive, but some sympathy.